Well, it's Chords and Coffee, and today we've got a very special guest. This is Gerson Zaragoza. Gerson, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. How you doing, Nate? Good to meet you. Good to be
Man,
here.
thanks. So, obviously, you play guitar. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation, but tell the folks a little bit about who you are, and how long you've been playing guitar, and are there other things outside of guitar that that you do that are just your life? So, that's the first question.
So yeah, I'm Gerson. I play guitar primarily. I weird to say primarily. I really do a lot of everything. I kind of think of myself as the problem solver of the group when it comes to music and music production. It's a huge part of my life. It's not all of my life. I am a physician by training. I have an MD, so I got a regular day job, but I try to balance it and do as much as I can, doing as much music to serve the community that I play for here. And I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
That's really cool. And so I'm so excited to launch into just all the balance of music and life. And is it just you? Do you have a family, or what's your home life like?
It's just me right now. I have a dog, Johnson. You'll probably see him running around here behind me. I just recently got engaged in Feb and hoping to get married next year, summertime.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Very cool. So you're an MD. Did I hear that right?
Right. Yep.
That's amazing. So that seems like that's time consuming. Am I wrong or am I right?
I mean, I have it kind of set up where I'm able to, at least right now, make some kind of cushion to balance the two. So that's one of the things I think is really important when it comes to the modern day musician, is sometimes one takes a little bit more than the other, or one kind of encroaches on the schedule of something else. And then, you might get a little bit overwhelmed, but finding that balance is really, really, really important.
Yeah, and man, what a great thing to talk about. I'll tell you, this is so timely. It's so timely. I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and so I'm 47 years old. I've got two kids, married, got a dog, Golden Doodle, Kingston the dog, and it is hard. I love guitar and I love music, but it's hard to find the balance. But it's not as hard as you think when you really start to. I'm going to use a dirty word here: budget your time, right? And one of the things I want to talk to you about is just how do you find that balance? But I think it would be really good for the folks who are watching this, because they may go, well, what does that mean? If you don't mind, and I know this is kind of a name drop setup, but it's appropriate. So, like, who are some of the folks that you have played with and are currently playing with, and maybe give us an idea? Because I mean, you've played with some big names.
Yeah. I consistently I play with good handful of artists, especially around town. They're mainly in the rap or hip hop or R&B scene. Some notable names are like Jarv Dee, Black Soul, R&B singer, Anthony Danza. Really, the list could go on, but they're artists who are very hungry, and that's kind of really what motivates me to work with them. Is I want to work with artists who are hungry, because that helps me, feel better about, like budgeting my time and, devoting what I can to what their artistry, I guess, entails.
When I was talking to Johnny, and he initially mentioned you've done some dates with Israel Houghton too, who's huge worship leader and Christian music artist, right?
Yeah, Israel's a good guy. So I play with a church. It's my church home over in Kirkland. I know their big location over is NLA. Judah's the preacher over there, and famously for being Justin Bieber's church.
Very
um,
cool.
it's a good little platform, because you have artists like Israel come by, and they use a church home's platform to really reach more people in like the modern age of streaming and just being available. Before, if you want to have a church service, you have to go to the church. But now with technology, you can be on your phone and be available to you at any time, any day. So it's really something valuable to be a part of.
I feel like where this is naturally going is I want to talk about music with you. Obviously, I want to talk about guitar and some of the inner workings of that, but also this balance thing. I mean, let's just get right to it. Do you find, I mean, you've got a day gig and you're starting a family and, you have all these other, obligations in your life. Do you have do you force yourself to regularly practice? And I'm going to be vulnerable here for a second. If I don't have like somebody depending on me, like you were talking about, having an artist who's hungry. Because when I hear the words hungry artist, I hear somebody that's got high expectations and has got a lot of skin in the game, right? And they're hoping you are the same, especially since you're playing with them, right? They don't want you to show up and go, I haven't really listened to it, and then just kind of phone it in. Especially you're a good player and you probably could, you could probably show up and play something that's right and sounds cool, but it may not be to the best of your ability, right? Because you had, so how do you have like a weekly practice routine? Or, I mean, how do you find time, especially with all these different gigs, to do due diligence to be ready for those?
That is, you said a word that really highlights in my brain here, and that's being vulnerable. That is a spot that I regularly find trouble finding that part of the budget to give. And I think that's also why I connected to, artists that are hungry, because if I see that, someone's production is really on a more demanding scale, I equally have to match that. I know that, it'll require X amount of hours, X amount of effort for me to invest to be on that level of production. I'll do it. So when it comes to practice, I guess it's really scaled on what the artist's expectation is. I know for me, there is that baseline, level where, I got to at least get the whatever reps I can get in. But yeah, when it comes to like practicing techniques and whatnot, I mean, you really do a lot of heavy lifting when you start playing, right? You learn how to do bends, you learn how to do vibrato. But after a while, it kind of becomes your new baseline. And I think it's less of practicing technique for me and more, I guess, adapting to the feel, adapting to the style, being a supporting character, at least right now in the groups that I serve. You can't stick out like a sore thumb unless they ask you to stick out like a sore thumb. There's a reason why they hire you, right? So at least being able to meet that expectation, like I said, I'll do it. That's how important being part of the music is for me.
So I did a little bit of Instagram stalking on you, and I saw you had a bass in your hand a few times too. So do you do a lot of gigs where you're playing bass?
I love playing bass.
Really?
I love playing bass. It's funny here locally here in Seattle, there's a ton of bass players. They're all amazing. And really, they're huge inspirations of mine because it's not just regular bass playing. I don't even know what regular bass playing is. Each bass player that I'm associated with here has their own character, their own style, their own delivery. And I think to make the whole puzzle work, I play guitar so that I can be with them. And that's kind of where I do a lot of my observing or listening, is I kind of get little licks on how they deliver certain parts, whatnot. And I kind of morph that into my own bass playing with my own flavor. And it makes bass playing for me very, very, very fun.
I will say I'm just now noticing back behind the your kennel for your dog, it looks like that's a stack of Aguilar amps. Is that right?
That is correct.
Product placement there. You're welcome, Aguilar.
The plate kind of staying up against the wall, but
yeah. No, I love it. It's funny. You said a couple things now that are, I love going down this rabbit hole just for a second. You talked about playing and listening and finding your place in the environment that you're playing in. And even before we got started, as we were just checking microphones and stuff, we were just talking about, music and everything. And you said something about intention, and something that we've talked about on Chords and Coffee a lot. And I would love to bring it up again, because this may be the first time anybody's watched one of these videos. Man, you want to talk about a game changer in your life as a musician. It's, music's a language, right? And the language of music, music theory helps us to understand how these phrases can be connected together. And when they are, just quick ways to talk about things, I desperately want to go down a little quick theory rabbit hole, but I'm going to resist and stay focused here. That being said, since music is a language, whether or not you have the wherewithal to adopt the accent of the language that you are learning is such a critical thing to me. Because, so I was on a missions trip many years ago. We went to Brazil, and in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. And it was funny because on that trip, in my own, you're trying to learn the language, but you can't help it because you're just surrounded by it, which is another thing about music. If you will willingly and with great vulnerability immerse yourself around other musicians who speak the language better, you will actually learn it faster. And then if you have the wherewithal and are willing to pick up the accent, not just the word, but how they say it, so that you can start to sound like them, not only do you fit in more, but the real gift of that is that you're actually able to communicate your intention better because you're able to use the language with a little more elegance, and you don't stick out in a negative way. You actually, it's when someone picks up the accent, it's like everyone around you like appreciates the fact that you're trying that hard to say it the right way. And your intention comes through. I would love to hear you talk about intention just for a minute.
Man, you hit a lot of big points. It's in my brain. I'm kind of checking off all those big, we call them, knee-jerk words where you have an instant comment to say about that. But if you approach it like a language, like you said, when you're, I guess, let's say in a jam setting, if you're doing a trading back and forth, sometimes people say you're having a conversation, so they'll say, "Speak to me," but you're playing, right? I mean, and if you're like, you're wanting to communicate a phrase, you don't just say the sentence without inflection. There's not any substance behind it. It's just you're reading blindly to somebody, or you're reading, like I said, with no intention. That might not be the most interesting conversation that you're having anymore. How do you get someone to reciprocate the same kind of energy if you're giving them, just very black and white things? So you really got to put some English in it. Whatever that English is your style. If the style is adopting that accent, oh man, these are like a big principle things, right? It's almost like hard to put it in, or like to manifest it into like the best way to communicate it. But that's what's so interesting about playing music is you put your own flavor behind it. You put your own accent behind it, and that's kind of what gives you your own signature. Yeah, there's a lot. This is a really, really big rabbit hole.
Well, you know what? So somebody might be watching this and saying to themselves right now, well, that's all good and well, fellas, but how do I, tell me what to do on my guitar? Well, I'm going to tell you, and I would love to hear some feedback from you too, is that, so let's just say this. Let's say you go to YouTube, find you're working on a pentatonic scale. Let's just say that as an example. Go to YouTube, find a backing track, and find something, do something you don't do all the time. Like if you do A minor or, an A key of A blues backing track, don't do that. Go find a C minor blues backing track or something where you're a little outside of your comfort zone. And then when you're playing the licks you would normally play, experiment with as many ways possible that you can put that inflection or a dialect. Try to think like, how would Stevie Ray do this? Or, what's the best impression of, a Miles Davis trumpet kind of phraseology? Well, I don't even know what that is. Well, go listen to some of that, and just try to voice things in a different way than just your standard, I'm just running through my pentatonic. A little bend here, or maybe start with the bend and release it. All these little points of inflection just to create some different phraseology. Because I promise you, you're going to find something that you hadn't done before if you're truly listening and paying attention to what you're playing, which that's a whole thing in of itself. But if you're listening and paying attention to what you're playing, you'll find something that you haven't done before, and you'll go, wait a minute, and then just keep working that. Just like when you're learning a new word, like when you're learning vocabulary, you got a word for the day, and the first time you use that word, it sounds like you jammed it into your sentence, right? All the people that love you and know you are going to go, you ain't never said that word before, right? But yeah, right. But if you keep it going, then it becomes just part of your normal everyday conversation. And that's what we're looking for. How would you approach something like that? And especially maybe if you have some examples of artists that you've played with where you're like, man, they're asking me to do something I don't normally do. How do you approach that?
Well, actually, I want to kind of highlight one thing you said, and you said Miles Davis. Go listen to Miles Davis and see what kind of approach he takes. Me personally, my favorite, or I guess biggest influence when it comes to guitar and guitar playing is not guitar players. It's singers.
Oh, very cool.
So, and I get that question a lot where it's like, who's your favorite guitar player? Yeah, you say, well, of course, SRV, John Petrucci, all the big people that, guitar players.
Right.
But if you kind of let heavy influence come from that, then you might end up just playing that, right? When you're put into a setting where it's like, okay, but how can you develop your sound? Where do you pull your inspiration from? Guitar players who've done the same, and it kind of becomes a funneling effect until it gets to you. I like to hear how other instrumentalists do it. For me, a lot of it is vocalists because they're not bound by a physical fretboard roadmap. Pentatonic isn't just shapes for them. It's almost like their approach in their brain. So funny thing for me, my favorite vocalist, maybe because there's heavy influence for me growing up, is Philip Bailey, Earth, Wind & Fire. He's got all of the range. And when I think about guitar, I try to play his lines, his vocal lines, or kind of get influenced by his vocal lines based on how he does intervals, which are totally different from how you do it on guitar. You're bound by how far you can stretch here. But really, if you can hear it in your head and you have enough technical command, then the sky's the limit. Sky's the limit for me. So I think that's kind of the ways that I've helped develop my guitar style, and even bass style really translates well on bass also.
No, it's so funny you say that. So I have all these questions that I write down that I want to ask, and I know that we'll never get to them because once we start talking, it's like, especially you get two guitar players, especially, it's I don't know what it is, but if you're watching this and you've got a buddy that plays guitar, it feels like, you could put two drummers together, like any two drummers, and they could play together and they'd just be happy. Whereas guitar players, we kind of have to like seek each other out and like almost like sort of vet one another a little bit, because it's like, are you into the same kind of stuff? Yeah. So this is great. I love this. We just did a Dave Weckl clinic at our Overland Park store. Okay. And you just said something that's so beautiful. And I hope that everybody catches this, because this is really a huge nugget. I mean, it made a thud when you dropped it. All right. So this idea of being able to sing what it is you want to play. Dave Weckl in this clinic, when he was talking about playing grooves, and the question was related to feel. And if you've never heard Dave Weckl, I mean, he first of all, he's a legend. Second of all, like stylistically, the man plays so many different genres perfectly. Mm-hmm. And feel is kind of part and parcel of, you play all this complicated stuff, but it feels just unbelievable, right? It just feels so good. You instantly want to dance to it, even if you can't dance, right? And so with that being said, he said, if you want to be able to have that kind of feel, you got to sing your drum parts. You can't just go, I mean, you have to, and like put the inflection into it, because when you do that, somehow subconsciously, your effort to put that inflection ends up translating into the way that you play it, which is kind of what you just said, right? And so if you're listening to singers, You know, I know Derek Trucks, I've heard him say many times that he listens to Mahalia Jackson, right? And I hope I'm saying her name right. Did I say it right? You know, fair enough. We got there. Anyway, he listens to a lot of gospel singers because of the runs that they do, but also the little things like, are they loud here? Are they soft here? And paying attention to all that nuance. You know, when you said that, it just, a thought popped in my head of, man, how cool would it be for someone to do the Star Spangled Banner the way that Whitney Houston sang it?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is, in my opinion, I mean, I love what Chris Stapleton just did with it, but I still feel like Whitney's is probably the ultimate version of that thus far, anyway. But no, that's great. Well, let me get to one of these questions here, because we just, I mean, we're already what, 20 minutes into this thing? All right.
Eric Trucks, and I can't believe I didn't mention him. He is the greatest example of someone that, you know, plays without bounds. The fact that, you know, I forgot what interview I saw, but, you know, I think it might have been a John Mayer comment that said that, you know, frets bound you to certain spaces, right? But all that dynamic in between the frets, just by playing with a slide, and yeah, he gets it. You know, he can really deliver it in a way that as closely as a singer would do it, right?
Oh yeah. Have you seen that? I know you have. There's that video where it's BB King, Derek Trucks, and John Mayer, and they're all sitting down. And then BB tells Derek to take a solo, and then he looks at John Mayer, and John Mayer's like, "No, I'm good." You know, and Derek delivers the most vocal phraseology. It is literally a masterclass on how to make your guitar sound like the human voice. And when it's over, BB looks at him and says, "I want you to know that's about as good as I've ever heard it." And the whole stadium, you hear this collective like, because like in that moment, it was almost as though BB said, "And now I bless you with a double portion of my spirit." You know what I mean? It got biblical.
That's the best sign you can get, right?
Exactly. All right. So let me pull up one of these questions here. All right. So we've talked a lot about getting, you know, in guitar and that sort of thing. How long have you been playing guitar? I forgot to ask that.
I've been playing guitar since I was 13 years old. In high school, I had about as traditional as a realization, you know, I think I'm going to be a rock star now. So I bothered my parents to get me stuff. And, you know, I had a really, really influential group in high school. So I think that really catapulted me into, I guess, where I am today. So yeah, since I was 13 years old, and I am 35 now.
Okay. So yeah. So see, it started when you're 13, 35 now. So 22 years. Is that about right?
It's a long time.
Yeah. And just real quick. So somebody's watching this and they're, you know, 53 and they're going, what am I doing? Encourage that person real quick. They just got started playing guitar and they're feeling like, why am I doing this? Is this a waste of my time? What would you say to encourage that person?
I don't think that's a waste of your time at all. I think finding something or coming to the realization that you have something you want to work towards and you have time to develop it, it's super, super valuable, because a lot of people don't ever get to that point. They might grow up without hobbies. You know, they might get bored during the day, but when you find that thing, if that thing is guitar, is the best time to start. There's the best time to keep doing it. There's all of the resources to help get you jump started. There's so much music out there that can keep you inspired to keep practicing. You know, there's a reason why you got curious about it in the first place, right? Well, I'll tell you that the more you do it, the longer that it checks off the boxes for you, the more rewarding you'll find it will be. Because once you learn that first song, be like, man, I think I can play another. I think I can learn another one after that one. I think I can learn another one after that one. And then you go down a rabbit hole and you just realize, wow, I'm really a musician now. So yeah, now's the best time to start.
I love that. Now is the best time to start. And I love how you said, wow, I'm really a musician now. That's something that I want every single one of my guitar playing friends to feel that. Like when you actually, there's something really magical about you feel like all of a sudden you're a part of this family of not just the people that that play an instrument or sing, but just this sense of the people that are decorating time with sound and silence and intention.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So let's talk about some nuts and bolts and just guitar gear kind of stuff. Tell me about your LSL guitar and just how long you've had it, and what you like about it, and is that something that you use quite a bit, or just talk? Let's brag on LSL for a minute. Go ahead.
I love LSL. I love the LSL family. I got connected with Johnny, I think it was end of 2020. It was really the dark times of musicianship, I guess. There was no gigs, there was no live events. Everything kind of turned into like streaming shows, or you were just a studio musician if you were going to the studio. I know that the Instagram guitarist became a huge wave, and it still is a huge wave. But yeah, I needed to find a way to grow, and I realized that I didn't have anything of like an LSL flavor in my arsenal. I got connected with Johnny and started the process. I started my build on my Satakoy HSS configuration. It is all of the sauce, all of the sauce. I think the turnaround time then was actually fairly quick. I was able to go visit the factory in LA and meet Lance, and yeah, I got super inspired after meeting them.
Lance is a character, isn't he?
Oh yeah, seeing the whole process and
Love
just
you, Lance. Yeah.
seeing he's got all the jokes, and you can tell he's got all the stories.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, and that was just the first LSL that I had at the time, and I was like, yeah, this is not the last. Absolutely not the last. I recently had a T-Bone built by them. T-Bone is like the T-style guitar that they have. It's got a little bit of the vintage relicking on it too. They really do a good job when it comes to their finishes over there. So I really appreciate it. And I got one of their basses as well. So I rock a Balboa from them. It's their P bass style bass. I'm still waiting on when Lance will start making a five string bass. So gonna keep bothering Johnny to bother Lance to get that into production. But I'll definitely have that in my arsenal soon enough too.
Man, 3 instruments. I didn't realize you were in that deep, but that's awesome. Congratulations. So do you, on most of your gigs, are you using amps, pedals, or are you using like a line direct device, or what's that look like?
Actually, it depends the gig. Nothing ever replaces the old analog setup, the real amp pushing real air, and I have the whole collection of pedals. By convenience, if I'm out like taking a fly date, somewhere, or if I have to go to an airplane, it'll be a modeler of some sort. I really try to take as little gear as I need. So it'll probably be like a little Line 6 modeler, the HX Stomp, something that fits in the gig bag. If I know that the back line is going to be proper and they'll have a whole amp set up, I'll bring a regular pedal board, just based on what the gig needs. But if it's here at home, or if it's anything like in the computer world, I run a lot of modelers here too.
If you could have the rig that you would love to tour with, and especially knowing that you don't have to pick it up and move it could just be there for you. What type, and if you don't want to say brand specific, that's totally fine, but what type of amplifier do you typically prefer to run through?
That is a good question. It depends on it really depends on what the gig is. If it's kind of like in the R&B world, I need a classic. I need a twin of some sort. I'll need a volume pedal, and I have like a drive. And I really want to keep it minimal, but yeah, definitely the twin setup. A very classic SIR setup. I came up as a metal player, so if I can have the proper the proper stack, the proper 5150 for like my metal project or my metal band, then yeah, I would rock that if it's available. When it comes to flying around with bass gear, I play Aguilar.
Right back over there. That's awesome. Yeah, that's funny. So you grew up as a metal player,
Yeah.
and then somehow or another evolved into playing more like, R&B, hip hop kind of music. What was the artist that was the point of entry for you, that when you heard that you were like, what is that? And you started to investigate that type of playing?
Oh, definitely Dream Theater. Like at that point, it was such a huge influence. John Petrucci and Liquid Tension Experiment, and just seeing musicians' music, that blew my mind, and that made me like really realize that I have to practice. I did a ton of heavy lifting at that time, where you learn the vocabulary, or you just learn that the words are words. And it's funny, it's not until I got into more the R&B world or the gospel world or the hip hop world that you start to intentionally use those words. You find out how to do it. So I really got, more of the flavor and delivery when you take the chops from metal and kind of put them into like a neo soul scenario. It makes a powerful player in the whole picture of things.
Well, as soon as you said that, I mean, you can't help but think about somebody like Mateus Asado, who is clearly a soulful player, but clearly has metal chops that kind of come out, at the right time. And he does such a beautiful job of. So if you haven't heard Mateus Asado and you're watching this, Mateous, but surely you've heard of Mateus. I mean, he was huge on Instagram. That's how and then of course Bruno Mars, and he's just been on Rick Beato, and he's an amazing player. But who is the point of entry for you in terms of going from Dream Theater kind of froggy metal to then what music got you into R&B, or was that something you kind of grew up with and was just sort of always there?
No, it was always there for me. I guess the more transition, and it's not even transition, I'm very heavy into both of those worlds, was really realizing that I can't play a full Mesa Boogie stack doing Earth, Wind, and Fire. Or I guess you could, but just realize you have to have a little bit more finesse with it.
Yeah. If you were going to recommend to the folks watching this, just some folks to go listen to in terms of, just things that inspire you. And even if it's like a new artist that, maybe isn't, a big a name as Earth, Wind, and Fire or something like that. Who are some folks that you'd like to just kind of shine a light on really quick that maybe our Chords and Coffee viewers haven't listened to yet?
I would say, my favorite artists right now are really the artists that I'm working with. And I don't want to say working with, they're not clients or anything. They're real, true friends of mine. But they're passionate about their artistry. The music is incredible. And it really, really inspires me a lot. So those artists, again, are Black Soul, Jarv Dee, Anthony Danza, Rocky Sandoval. There's those. I mean, when I think about my playlists that I listen to, like I know that there's a bunch of top 40 playlists that are curated by a lot of people in the city or everywhere. But it's weird because I know that when my Spotify recap happens here soon, it's going to be those artists that I work with, and I don't listen to them because it's a job that I have parts in their arrangements and whatnot. It's because I really do enjoy their music, and they check off all the boxes, like how we described earlier.
I feel like somebody right now is watching this and they're like, they've got their day job, for lack of a better term, and they would love to be able to do what you do, which is play with a lot of people and do travel dates and things like that. How would you encourage them to get involved in that, or like maybe a first step? How did you get started in that?
The baseline understanding is that you can play. You can play. You're on time. Those things. but really just be a genuinely nice person. You know, it's about developing the relationships with, you know, even if they're not music related, you don't expect things out of it. You're just a nice person. You're good to be around. You know, a lot of the time it doesn't require someone who's the best of the best, you know, but maybe you're the hungriest of the hungry. You know, that might be the swaying point to be like, yeah, I want to work with them, you know, because they'll help inspire me. They'll help push me to be better. Like in that comment you made earlier about how if you're amongst a lot of native speakers, you can't help but to feel like, you know, push to develop your language a little bit better. So if you're that person in the room, it's inevitable that you'll be part of that community.
That's good. And also it's really, I hope everybody caught the fact that being the hungriest of the hungry, because that's a big deal. You know, you can be really nice and a great player, but if you're not willing to say, yeah, I'll make that flight, or yeah, I'll rearrange my schedule to get that gig, or, you know, I was just talking to a friend of mine that I work with, and he had to drive to Oklahoma, you know, to work with the band. And it was one of those deals where as it was approaching, he was like, gosh, just thinking about like not wanting to do it, just being tired, but he did it because he said he would. And then ended up being a wonderful thing that, you know, opened a whole doorway to blessing that, you know, had he not done it, he wouldn't have had that. And sometimes that's just the hard truth of it all, is that if you're not willing to say yes, you know, to these opportunities, even though they're not very convenient, you just don't have them. Right.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you meeting with me. There's some really great nuggets that you dropped here that, you know, with phrasing and just practice time and balance. And, you know, this is something that, you know, especially as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving, it's just been on my mind I think it's really important for your ears to hear your voice express gratitude. And I'm saying this about myself every day. And when I'm meeting with the different teams in our company, you know, one of the things we do every single time, we have a full company meeting every month, and we always start it with "Tell me something good." You know, of course, you can't help but hear that Rufus song when you say that. You know, tell me something good.
A knee-jerk reaction, right?
Exactly. What's really funny is like the timing of that little, you know, like you either have that or you don't. You have that little guitar lick that's in there. I'm really grateful you took the time to do this, and I'd like to offer you. Is there somebody in your life, or some bodies, whether it's an old guitar teacher or, you know, a fiance, or anybody that you would just like to take a second, just be like, show some gratitude towards that person?
Yeah, I'm thankful for a lot of things. I'd say it's my dad. He's not really a musical person. He knows a couple of guitar songs, but he's always supported. Might not ever understood. You know, I don't understand why the music has to be so loud. I don't understand why these riffs are so crazy. I know, you know, he knows what he knows. But having 100% support means a lot.
That's awesome.
Really the
guy. I am in the exact same situation. There's no way I would have a guitar in my hand had not my dad. My dad, my first guitar came into my life, funny, around Thanksgiving. My dad bought it at a pawn shop. I still have it. It's an Epiphone made in Japan acoustic guitar.
Best.
Yeah. And it changed my life. And, you know, I think about all the things that my father has done for me in my life. And I had a pretty wild period where I was my mama, her prayer life escalated radically, you know, because I went off the deep end for a little while. And definitely I know the length of the prodigal road. But my dad, same, always been supportive, always been not a musician, loves music, one of those rare people that like loves music but doesn't really play, you know. And so no, I feel that. I'm really glad you said that. Thank you. And I hope my dad's watching this too. So is your dad still with us?
Yeah, he's still with us. He just started his Instagram, so I'm sure he'll see this.
Awesome. Well, you have to show him how to regram it.
Yeah, he just got a GoPro. He says he's going to film himself gardening. That's his content.
Perfect. Well, maybe we'll tag his Instagram for premium gardening content.
Oh yeah, about that.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. Any closing thoughts beyond that?
No, Nate, it's really been a pleasure. Yeah, I'm thankful to be on here. Grateful for all the things, and it's cool to be able to connect with you. Really, really cool, and having Johnny, connect the dots here. I love those guys. I love everything that it all stands for, and I love building with my community here, and I will continue keep doing that.
That's awesome. Well, I hope we get to do this again. It'd be cool to do it in person too, and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Chords and Coffee community is the most encouraging guitar community on the face of the internet.
Let's go.
That's it. So thank you for now becoming a part of that. And thank you all for watching. Hit the subscribe button. Put comments in there. Is there an Instagram or something you want these folks to follow, or anything that they should, some sort of call of action to help support you in what you're doing?
I mean, I'm the most active on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram.com/GersonMancan, spelled GersonMancan.
Gerson Mancan. Well, Gerson, thanks for being a part of Chords and Coffee. God bless you for that. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you next Saturday, 9 a.m.